make sure that Matiang'i is contained. Yes.
You see Raila's usefulness to William Ruto, his ability to deliver Nyanza, because he has already lost the Gambas, he has lost the Luyas more or less. Because Natembe has been very effective.
Indeed.
So if he cannot hand over Nyanza block, then his value is near zero, political value. So they must fight for this block to remain the same. And Matiang'i is an obstruction to that agenda. So they have to deal with that.
I'm looking at some statistics here. These are just last elections figures. And because we are looking at this conversation in the context of voters and voting blocks.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Kisii had nearly 1 million registered voters 2022. I'm looking at, this is Kisii and Nyamira.
Yeah,
combined, the two counties. But now when you look at Kisumu, Kisumu has 606,000. Homa Bay, 551,000. That's already over 1 million.
Yeah.
Then you have Migori, 469,000. That's 1.65. Then you have Siaya, which is 553.
Yes.
So you're looking somewhere in the margins of over 2 million.
Yeah. Exactly.
Why care? If you already have this block,
yes.
If you're saying, so Raila has the whole of Luo Nyanza, this is over 2 million.
Yes.
Then you've got Kisii with 1 million.
I'll tell you why you care. The Kisii is about 1 million. But the 700,000 of them will vote. Now that 2 million you are talking about of Luo Nyanza is about 1.3. So that's why you have to care about the 700,000, because that is as significant given the, you see, in what has been happening over the years in the Luo Nyanza, the turnout has traditionally always been lower.
Yes.
Part of the reason is the way Raila runs his primaries there. He disappoints the voters by direct ticket to some people. And the people lose hope. They don't like it. They resent it, so they don't come out to vote. So when you look at the register, the voters, very good. But now look at the turnout in the election.
Yeah.
So the cases are fewer, but they will turn out higher. Well, not higher because they can't beat really the numerical, the vote. But when you look at the proportion in the turnout, the 1,700,000 people vote out of 1 million. That is a significant turnout. So that's why they would want the block, the Nyanza block. So you see, Nyanza is made of 3 communities: the Kuria, the Kisii, and the Luos. Those are the communities that make Nyanza. Now, for you to get serious traction in next election, you need that block together, because this election is going to be organized purely on tribal basis. Let's not cheat ourselves, because Kenyans, we like a lot to lie and not to accept the fact. The truth is, William Ruto and demolished the tribe in the campaign of 2022. He immobilized the country as one on the message of the economy, which is a very clever thing, because we don't have separate markets. We have one market. He was able to communicate so forcibly, and the people became Kenyans, and they voted like. But he has returned them right back to the tribe. So now they are going to organize on that basis.
Kedi, is it really true that we're going to see a reorganization along tribal lines in this coming election? Because in reference to what Prof has said, Ruto then managed to galvanize the whole country, and there was one economic message. But then the narrative also was hustlers versus dynasties, and people are saying, enough of these dynasties. We want one who looks like us, talks like us, who comes from a village like us, and that was Ruto then. But what is the current conversation? What's the narrative that is going to push people to go out and vote in 2027? Is it still along tribal lines?
One, I think that the country is at crossroads. And when I say crossroads, it's that there are a number of factors that are now coming together that are now going to determine the next election. One of them, of course, is the question of the economy and how the management of public affairs is done. Remember that 2 years ago, a year ago, we had the Gen Z protest, And as late as this year, July, we had that push around Sabasaba, and before that, there was the memorial, the 1-year anniversary. Away from that, Kenyans are also coming to a place where they are saying that the Kikuyu-Kalenjin duopoly is unsustainable. And therefore, finding someone who is credible outside of these two, outside of the Kikuyu-Kalenjin duopoly would be something that Kenyans are looking towards. These two issues are going to influence the 2027 elections. So then the question is, does Matiang'i fit that bill? There are people who are saying that Matiang'i is unfit in part that because of his previous tour of duty. But I want to remind Kenyans that politics is the art of the possible. Because remember that even Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto in 2012 looked like they were going nowhere. But then a year later, just a couple of months later, they had overrun the machine that had been set up by the Prime Minister and then Vice President. So then I think that in the Matiang'i, then takes me back to what I said earlier, that one, he is non-Kikuyu, non-Kalenjin. Two, he has demonstrated before that he can disrupt the status quo. And by status quo is that, he can come in and focus on service delivery. It is something the people of Kenya are crying for, that he can set up systems. Of course, when we were migrating from analog to digital, people are saying that he used a lot of force. But Kenyans are getting to a place where they are saying, we'd rather have that force and we see the service delivery than when we have force. But what we are seeing is that every system is designed to steal from the people. So that when he goes to education, he streamlines it. So in spite of his weaknesses that might have, reared their heads during his tour of duty as a minister, people are seeing that Matiang'i is someone who can deliver. On account of that, then that now brings me to the numbers. That you are saying that Luo Nyanza has got 2 million votes. 2 million votes. Remember, out of these 2 million votes, you've got about 300 to 400 who are necessarily not Luos, not Kisis, and not Kuria, because they're people who have migrated into Luo Nyanza. You put that number together with the Kisi vote, you put that number with the people who might revolt against broad-based, and then you realize that Matiang'i is actually a serious presidential contender.
Okay.
You look at that, you take this number and add it together with the numbers that he can able to mobilize outside of this, outside of Nyanza, and then you realize that Matiang'i is one person whom, if the opposition can rally around, then he is one of the people who then can present a serious headache.
Okay.
And that is why he must be contained. Yes.
So is this game, is this process
Yes.
a game of numbers? Is it purely about the numbers? Or is it a game of swaying the minds of people to coalesce their thoughts around an idea that there can be an alternate source of leadership? Or are people right now playing only the numbers game to say, okay, well, let's play Monopoly here, and if you take Kenya and put it on a board, and if I get Nyanza and I get Kisi Nyanza, Kuria Nyanza, Luo Nyanza, then I'm fine. If I get Muranga and I get Kiambu and I get Nairobi, then I'm fine. Is that what people are thinking about? Or are people not imagining that Kenya would want a space where governance, leadership, the rule of law and constitutionalism are actually front and center of the attention?
Ideally, it should be what you are suggesting. Election is to be based on policy proposals, which can lift the people out of this economic misery, which can fix the education system, fix health, and so on. Remember, this is actually how Ruto won the election, by simply sticking to the issues. Even though he talked about the dynasties, he talked about the dynasties in the context of the 60 years they have messed up the country. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, people accepted that. They accepted that you can focus in issue, and therefore we can trust you with what you are saying to deliver us. Now that actually has not happened, because what happened is the president, after being elected, is like he dropped us like Anguan, you know. So we have split in all directions. Right now, we are not interested in the concrete proposals on what we are going to do. We will be looking for the Kenyan who can remove William Ruto in order to put an end to his policies. And then from there, people figure out that they can now reorganize. So the numbers are going to matter. People are going to sit down and they say, what do you really, because the election has become emotional. It's now out of the reasoned, rational, economic discussion. It's now emotion. Because it has become emotion, the politicians will now capitalize on that. And this is where the numbers now become important. So they just look at you and say, okay, because this thing is emotional, how many can you mobilize? Can you mobilize your tribe? How many can you produce in that emotional arena? You see, when it comes to emotion, is when the tribe becomes important. The moment we reduce the election from what really matters, which is a discussion on your agenda for us for 5 years. That's what matters. The moment we reduce it now, we move away from that arena and reduce it to the emotions, raw emotion.
Don't we
Then
think
the numbers matter.
So, okay, Prof, but and also, Kitty, don't you think that we're getting, or do you think that we're getting to a place whereby the proposed leaders, or those who want to throw their hat in the ring, have no idea what Kenyans are really interested in at this point?
I think they do.
Kenyans, from what I have heard,
I think they have an
from what
idea.
I have heard, unless my ears are not working, the majority of Kenyans couldn't give a rat's behind if it's a Luo or a Kikuyu or a Luya or a Kisi. They're not concerned about tribe. They're concerned about getting things done right in Kenya. Or are they not, Kiddy?
Yes.
Are they not concerned?
I think you're spot on. You're spot on, but remember that we started on the premise that is Matiang'i being targeted. So some of the responses you've then been able to generate from Prof and myself is in the context of Matiang'i in the picture. But I think that
Matiang'i as a leader
Yes.
who previously held ministry docket
Yes.
where he was able to bring in order.
Yes.
And he was able to see that things were happening.
Yes.
Many would have called him a dictator and that
Yes.
things slid under the carpet,
Yes.
which shouldn't have when it
Yes.
comes to things like human rights and such. I'm not maybe people are not saying Matiang'i the Kisi. People are saying Matiang'i the man of order.
that's
And is
so
he the one that people are trying to put in the closet, not Matiang'i the Kisi?
So what I'm saying is that there is a world as it is. Then there's a world as it ought to be. In the world of real politics is that a number of things matter. One of them is that numbers matter. In a country that is ethnically fractious like Kenya, ethnicity will matter. In a country where service delivery has collapsed as it has collapsed, then emotions will matter. Then how does these three things come together to help us determine the next election? One is that because service delivery has collapsed, there is the question of civils of the middle class, particularly the people with a pay slip. There is a question of young people who feel that the current administration is a throw. And particularly now that the president has started the many forays to State House, when a few young people are collected from the streets and taken to State House, they went in or they go in with very high hopes. Teachers are mobilized to go to State House and they go in with very high hopes. And then when the whole conversation is reduced to small fare reimbursement, and very little conversation actually takes place. And even the conversation that takes place does not, focus on the critical issues around the education sector.
Yeah.
The majority of those who come out convinced that this is a man we must help remove from this house.
Okay.
So then those emotions are going to matter. So then as we head into 2027, as Matiang'i as one of the possible presidential candidates, Because I come from a school of thought that people do not get to the Olympics by accident. There is a bit of work, certainly they have done. So then you look at Matiang'i in the context of, is he able to unify the country against the establishment or against the existing president? So then that brings me to a place where I would say that these numbers will matter in the context of, can people within Nyanza, outside of Kisii, trust Matiang'i?
Okay,
And the answer is yes.
Yes, they can. So when they make a decision,
Yes.
is the decision based on whether this man Matiang'i can deliver what it takes for Kenya?
Yes.
Or is the decision based on where he's from?
The decision is on that, can Matiang'i bring a different vision from the vision that is prevailing at the moment. And I told you this, maybe I wasn't too forceful about it, that if you look at all the systems that have been designed for the last 3 years by this administration, by and large, they are designed to steal from the people. Doctors have spoken very eloquently about how the SHA is not working and how the previous system, NIF, was way better than SHA as it is. If you look at the affordable housing project, for all the glory about it, it has now been turned into a political tool.
Sure.
Where everyone is promised a share of the affordable housing. I guess the next time interparties are having a sit down with the president,
We'll be given how 15%.
yeah, so I, again, you move away from that and you look at the problem around e-citizen, and the Auditor General, the Office of the Auditor General, has told us the problems around around e-citizen. So when all these systems are designed to steal from the people, then naturally the people say enough is enough. We must find someone with an alternative, viable vision. Thank you.
What you are saying is absolutely correct. That as Kenyans, we need to be concerned on what this person can do for us, not where he come from. Because where he come from is completely irrelevant. Okay? Now, where the fellow come from becomes only significant when we are trying to put the numbers together. That's
I get it. Okay.
that is when it becomes important. But we realize that we live in a single market. There are people right now, there is UNDA, which is in government, and there is others who are not in government, who came from Asimio. You don't go to a supermarket and they find that because you're in UNDA, the goons here are cheaper than the other. You don't find that. So people understand this is economy is one, and therefore they should look for somebody who can fix the economy. So Matiang'i, when he was the ICT minister, at least he got that danger to migration done. Okay? When he was in education also, so the time that he has spent in government, he has gotten things done. That's what people should be looking at. That this guy can get the things
Done.
Okay? So that's why he had to build his base. Now, his problem why I see is a target is very simple. At one time, I think in 2013, I was in the Rift Valley Sports Club, and Mundabani defect from 1DM. I was sitting with a professor from Western Kenya, a very nice guy. He is now late, so may God rest his soul in peace. And I told them, I think the country hasn't gotten a president. Because at that time, I was aware Kibaki was trying to find an Onikikuyu, because 207 is shocked that he was there. So the way you can unite the countries is like we are trying to say, to avoid this country leadership being a footing ball between the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin. So the professor told me, Professor, no, it won't happen. So I asked him why. He said, for this country to take you seriously, your feet must be firmly planted in your community. In fact, you must get total support. Of course, now is a long story because he ended up explaining to me why the lawyers won't support Mudavandi. And it happened exactly the way that professor. And he said, it's quite a, it's quite a story. And I'm saying it's a story because the professor alluded to primitive jealousies, which guide our decisions. And the primitive jealousy is when you do something that obviously is not useful to you or to anyone else, he kind of explained to me why he thought the Luyas wouldn't support Mudavadi, and it appears to me they may have grown out of that. Because when that story, what he's saying is, he was an animal scientist, so he's saying when a Kikuyu plants, when a Kikuyu buys a cow, his neighbor start to plant the Nepian grass because he knows the market for the grass has
come to the
come
doorstep.
close. What that means is you can sell on grass and eventually buy your own cows. So both you have cows. But the fellow said in Luya where he come from, he said when a Luya buys a cow, his neighbor will sell the only family goat to buy poison to kill the cow. So both they can be poor. Of course, that description can apply to Meros. They can apply to a lot of Kenyans, in my opinion. So that's how we explain. Now, Matiang'i must be stopped then from planting his feet family in Kisii. Yes. Because the moment he does that and get solid Kisii support, then the country begin to take him seriously. Yes. That's what they want to avoid.
I have a question. Because you earlier, I think it's a kid you said, despite his weaknesses, he's a man who works. That's what you alluded to.
Yes.
What are his weaknesses? And are those weaknesses his Achilles heel? Because there is another side where people argue and say, look, he may be a very good administrator, but not necessarily a politician.
Yes.
And for you then to become president, you need to be both.
Yes.
And there is also the element of these outright arrogance and defying court orders and so many other things that people say, look, no human being is perfect, but at least he can get the work done. Yes. What are these weaknesses that you think on this other side they can leverage on and actually manage to get to him?
Yes, my brother Dennis, I was keen from the outset not to write off C.S. Matiang'i. And now that you've asked me about his weaknesses, I felt duty bound from the start to mention it, even as we give him the benefit of the doubt that this is a man who is in the Olympics, and people don't get to the Olympics by accident. Mm-hmm. So his weaknesses begins with the human rights record. Part of why the rest of us, particularly young people, are at war with William Ruto is because of the human rights record of his administration.
Yes.
The number of people that his administration has facilitated to go to heaven prematurely and unjustifiably. And for the rest of us who are around during the period after the 2017 elections, we saw how heavy-handedness of the state was deployed against people who were exercising their constitutional rights. Away from that, we also saw how...
and give us an example of that. I need you to be very clear on what you said, because I see some other people are also making comments about that. You said his heavy-handedness to ignore people's constitutional rights.
Yes.
In what way?
In the period after, okay, let me say this.
Yeah.
For the benefit of the viewer,
yes.
In 2017, I was in the NASA Presidential Secretariat.
Okay.
As a consequence, we disagreed with how the elections was done, and the Supreme Court agreed with us.
Yes.
So in the period after that, we demanded that there were certain things that IBC had to do before we could go back to that election. Okay. When those things were not done, then we boycotted that election and engaged in other political processes that today that were then known as Uhuru must go. So when we were saying Uhuru must go, it was a political process that is guaranteed by the Constitution that we could protest, we could picket, we could demonstrate. The way police presence was deployed against our people, the number of casualties we suffered, and when I say casualties, I mean fatalities, is unjustifiable. In Nairobi, in Kisumu, in places like Migori, and the entire Western Kenya.
And you're linking this to one Matiang'i?
Yes, I link it to Matiang'i because he was the person in charge of that instrument of violence. Okay. I move from that, and you come to the Miguna issue, and the way and a number of court orders were issued that Miguna should not be removed outside the country. and even when he was removed, that he should be allowed safe return. The way CS Matiang'i and his people frustrated these court orders is something that we cannot turn our eyes from. Away from that, there were a number of defiance of court orders by the Jubilee administration. When these court orders were being defied, when Matiang'i had a chance to speak to this issue, I think in Parliament, when he was invited to Parliament, he did not demonstrate willingness to respect these court orders. But I come from a school of thought that mui huwa mwema. So I wouldn't come to Spice FM and beat his head with a stick.
Okay.
Maybe he has had a chance to soul search.
Moment.
Yes, to soul search.
Okay.
And maybe given an opportunity, he might take a different turn. But I think that we are duty bound to tell the people of Kenya that when he had a chance, in that regard, he might not have done very well. Thank you.
Okay. Prof, sorry. We're talking about an individual, but it is representative of a national conversation that you could bring anybody who's saying that they want to put themselves up for, this selection and put them under this magnifying glass as well. What do you think is the problem? Because for every election in the last 25 years, there has been no choice from unknowns. And I'm speaking about the presidency here. I'm not talking about members of the county assembly, members of parliament, because you have many unknowns coming in and doing phenomenal work as those positions. But there has been no selection of unknowns in the presidency. It always is that you have to select from somebody who was affiliated with, was in the limelight. Why is it, or why does it seem difficult to then actually have somebody who is not known or hasn't been around the block for this particular selection?
Yeah, the reason for that is very simple. You need actually two things to be significant in the presidential competition. You need money and you need something called political infrastructure. Political infrastructure takes time to build. So the people who have that one, the people who have been there, in the arena, they have political infrastructure. Now, unfortunately, the same thing with the money. Because, you see, the unknown wouldn't be like me and you. I'll come and they say, I want to be president, I have a good agenda for Kenya. I neither have political infrastructure nor money. Okay? So you won't cut it. That has been the challenge. Now, the people with the money also, unfortunately for the country, are thieves. Okay. Now, let me explain myself. You look at in this country, the people who have made money properly, I don't even think they reach 5. You can count them on one side of your hands. You have money either because you worked with the government or you traded with the government. Yeah. Either way, you stole, you engaged in corruption, in overpricing, in entrepreneuring, and so on. So this is why it's been difficult to get somebody completely from outside. Like now, for example, let me tell you, there are two fine Kenyans in this race, if you want to say that. There is the former judge and then there's Omotata. I mean, as fine as they come, if you are looking at the complete total integrity, of course there is also Mother Garua there. But we are talking about the people who are not exactly known. You see, the ability for them now to sell themselves in every village is limited. It's limited by the fact that simply they don't have money because they have been working like you and me. Okay? Earning an honest living. They didn't go into the government either to rob the Kenyan citizen, because that's what has happened. And also, they don't have a political network, an established political network. So those two things is what prevents these very nice, honest Kenyans, because we are not really doomed. We still have good people here. We are very good people here. But seeing them, you have to cut through those two impediments, through money and political infrastructure.
And speaking of money and political infrastructure, does it then matter who are the backers? Because you look at the case of Matiang'i, and there's a conversation around Jubilee Party ticket.
Yes.
And there's also a conversation around former President Uhuru Kenyatta pushing and funding.
Yes.
Okay. Does it then matter who funds you? And is this pushback also because of who you are affiliated? Because people want to know, where are you getting your money to finance your political campaigns? I mean, former Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga was here. Yes. And he actually gave out a number, and he appealed to Kenyans. Tafadhali, nichangieni.
Got 500,000 only.
Well, for that week. For that week then. And it's like Kenyans help me with the money and resources to then campaign. And even the people working for him, these are people volunteering to work with him together. I don't know how Omtata is doing this or how he's going to do this. But does it then matter? Because you need money to do campaigns. You need money to do tours. And like Prof is saying, Kidi, if you don't have money to go to a village in Turkana, you can't go to Lamu. And during election campaigns, as journalists we've covered, and the last election, we actually observed when Raila Odinga was doing 4 tours in a day within a certain area, for example, Nairobi, Ruto was doing 8 in a day. And he's in Mandera. He flies to Mombasa. So in a week you canvass the entire country. Does it then matter who backs you?
It matters. It matters because in agenda setting of every society, there is the role of the elites. The elites will always have a say in a direction that a society goes. There are instances where the interest of the elite and the interest of the masses converge. And there are instances when those interests are at variance. One of the things that has stopped Kenya from making a great leap forward has been what people like Prof call the Contractors Manifesto. That I have got this good manifesto, but on account of people who backed me, the moment I am elected, I put it aside and then now implement the Contractors Manifesto. For instance, when William Ruto was coming in, people were imagining that he was one person who could manage to get in and disregard the Contractors Manifesto and stick to the manifesto of the people. The evidence today demonstrates that he is not any different.
He abandoned.
Yes.
He abandoned this.
He quickly abandoned the manifesto of the people and he embraced the Contractors Manifesto. So I am giving that example to underscore the fact that it matters who backs you. I think that as we go into 2027, and allow me to throw spanner in the works, that we have got someone who has got both the money and the political infrastructure to, upset the status quo.
Okay.
He has got no corruption dealings to his name. He has got no human rights violations to his name. And he comes from the biggest party south of Sahara and north of River Limpopo. And that is Gideon Moi. Gideon Moi would be a proper presidential candidate. And as the Secretary for Policy and Legislative Affairs on Spice FM, I tell you, watch this space. Thank you.
Okay.
But he has not entered the race, so how is he going to be president?
Elections are 2 years away. I'm glad you're saying that. And I'm glad you're saying that he has not entered the race. The time when Kenyans decide to make Mwai Kibaki president, it was 3 months to election. As of December 2012, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, I think, had just come from Afra Stadium in Nakuru to make that marriage of theirs. So I think that we have got time. We have got time to consult within the opposition and outside of the opposition with young people. And as someone, and every actor is self-interested. I'm seeing Professor.
I want to support him on one thing. I don't want what he's saying get lost about this Contractors Manifesto.
Yes.
There is another name they call clientelism.
Yes.
Client. When a state becomes client-driven.
Yes.
For example, a very good example is this. There was absolutely zero reason for changing NHF. Zero. Because expanding the way they want them to expand it, the people say that they calculated they needed 800 million. But you want to change it and get a new thing called the share, because that way you can give somebody a 104 billion contract. Do you understand that? The client driven, the decision is not driven for the good of the country. It's driven for who needs the money and is your supporter.
Yes.
Okay? So you could easily say the same thing as this housing thing. How are those tenders issued?
Yes.
What are the specifications for those houses? Are we following the procurement law,
Yes.
Procurement Disposal Act, and so on? That's what it means by abandoning the People's Manifesto you campaigned on, and then reaching out to the clients, to the contractors' manifesto, and implementing that one, because that is important to you. So that is the weakness. That is the weakness in our political system.
Yes.
And we need to figure out how to deal with it, how to make you, once president, to remove personal interest in decisions when you make the decisions. Because what we are producing is transactional leaders, that any policy decision that does not benefit me directly is abandoned.
Yes.
Okay, in favor of what can benefit the decision maker. We need to figure out how we can separate this so that we can have, so that when you win on a platform, you are able to stick to that platform. Because this idea of, because if you look at these policies that we are making now, Kenya Kwanza policies, they must have a direct benefit to the policy maker. And that is how you destroy a country, actually. Because you see, when you are a transactional leader, you are only going to be concerned with those 5 years because you are thinking about the next election. When you are transformational leader, when you don't allow clientelism to lead you, when you don't put a premium on the contractor's manifesto, it means your preoccupation is the next generation. And that means you can leave a good legacy for the country. You can govern for the people. So there are two things. There is now governing for the people. In other words, decisions always transfer to the next generation. There is this governing for yourself, which is quasi governing, because what you are doing now, you are not governing. You are owning the country. Okay? There's a difference between governing and owning, governing Kenya and owning Kenya. So when you are client-driven, you are owning Kenya. Because every decision you make, he must have a direct, personal, financial benefit to you, the leader, the primary person. Now, when that happens, you are actually not in governing. You are in the process of owning the country, and you mess it up.
So what Prof is saying is actually one of the biggest problems in the country today. The repurposing of the formal state and being taken over by the shadow state. That shadow state constantly it influences policy and distributes that who does what, when and how. And the benefit, and they're motivated by the benefit that they derive from the state.
As an individual and not for the people.
Thank you.
As individuals.
Right. As individuals and not for people.
Thank
And
you.
even as we have these conversations, there's a hope more and more that at some point the needle will shift and that folks who are getting into these positions are actually doing it for the people. And I guess you could even decide to play a game or have a competition and say who then really is concerned about the building of a nation and the securing of the livelihoods of its people, which is what leadership and governance
It
is
should be
actually about.
Yes.
You know?
And unfortunately for us, we have not been able to produce that person. What we have been having is actually a colonial state from independent, with the black people, with the white skins. Black skin is kind of the
Replacing
white
the
one.
white skin.
But the decisions has been extractive, the same.
The same
Yeah,
thing.
the Mzungu would be the one right now, it won't make any difference. We got a reprieve under Kibaki. We got a genuinely African government. The Kenyan the government that they thought about this, but notice the difference between that government and all the others. That was also the first government of national unity. It was called Nusu Mugate. That's the only government that delivered for Kenya. Because it concentrated on the Kenyans.
On Kenyans.
The decision, for example, there's a law now before Parliament, I think, about the Sind. Why would you even imagine bringing that kind of a law in a country like ours? Because we have lived with exchanging this since creation. But now you want the satisfying because somebody is pushing. Somebody who is not us. Okay? So when you look also at the borrowing we have done since 2013, because I think our problem, to be fair with you, William Ruto, started in 2013.
Indeed, it did. And, I'm sorry, Prophet, our time is just, it's running out. But honestly, to have such conversations, as we say, is important. But we're looking for a time as that, where the nation state and the people that build the nation, or that make up the nation, are front and center in terms of the attention. It'll be interesting to see what things how they start to unfold in the coming days. Professor Gitile Naituli and Kidi Mwaga have been here with us this morning. Thank you for joining us in this conversation. We look forward to more at a minute past 8. Good morning.
This is The Situation.